Okay, so
going on there.
okay, so yeah, but you gonna break us down to
you
what
will
it's all
break it
about
down
anyway.
more.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go right into
Jasmine,
detail.
so can you hear us?
Can you?
I'm more concerned about the audio at this point.
Yeah, because I can't hear any. Of course.
Well, you not,
Feedback,
yeah.
I don't have the headphones.
Yeah, I got everybody up to date in terms of where they are. Bam. Okay, so and whatever, Jasmine, whatever you can't hear, let me know. Some short shape or form.
He's a vet science person.
All right. All right.
Are we?
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome again to... What episode is this, Lady B? I'd be so off
This
in
is
terms of...
episode 32.
32. It's 32 episodes,
That's
guys.
right.
We still hanging in there, right?
Yes.
So, guys, listen. Just before we get started, guys, listen. I'm going to just jump right into it and say automatically, listen, share this, like
Yes,
this.
please.
Guys, we want you to, if we're talking to our YouTube, people on YouTube or LinkedIn.
Yes.
Happy to see you guys. We're new to LinkedIn. I think we got over 2,000 followers on LinkedIn.
5,000.
5,000 followers on LinkedIn. So that's our so new community in terms of going live.
Most definitely.
We appreciate you guys tuning in. We got some awesome things that we're going to talk about today. And even into our condolences to Kobe Bryant's family.
Oh, yeah. So
sad
sorry to hear
and,
that.
just
So
so
sad.
messed up in that situation. I'm still
I was
messed up in
shocked.
that.
Yeah, I was
When
shocked.
I first heard it, I was just blown away,
I mean,
I feel like somebody I knew. You know what I
Man.
mean? When you
Yeah.
see them all, half of your life, not half of your life, but
But
you see
part
them
of
so
it.
much on TV.
Yeah.
And,
with a lot of life left to go.
Yeah,
41.
41.
Daughter, right?
Yeah, his daughter too. That's just that's painfully crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy. But anyway,
It's like
guys,
denial,
yeah,
like,
just
no, it didn't
right.
happen.
Maybe I need to see a counselor after this. But anyway, send shouts out to all our people on YouTube, Facebook,
Yes.
Instagram,
LinkedIn, yep.
LinkedIn, guys, the social media platforms. Guys, listen, tune in, share this page.
Right now.
Guys, listen, always remember, you can comment. You can comment. We definitely love it when you do comment because it means that, for one thing, we know you out there. So comment, guys. Our first hour always be about business.
Most
we
definitely.
love to talk to you about business,
Yes.
what's going on in your community, so that you can stay, I like to say, woke to what's going on. Even though this guy been around for some time now in the community, so he's definitely not new to the community.
That's right.
And making things happen, innovator. And in this society, but either way it go, share and like this page.
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
before I go in, I'd like to say, how is everybody doing today?
How everybody doing? How was you guys' week?
Oh, it's great. Great.
That's great.
Good.
How was your week?
Hectic.
RW3, lovely T.
I'm just juggling right now.
Just juggling right
Juggling.
okay.
That's right.
What you juggling?
What you juggling?
A whole lot. Job.
Yeah, life. Yeah.
Life.
Oh, so that means
Child.
you juggling a lot of money.
No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
A lot of
One doesn't
credit
equate to
cards,
the
a lot
other.
of. You mentioned all them jobs. I mean,
Right.
I'm juggling a lot of cash.
That's
No,
right.
no,
That's right. Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
and even if that was the case, a lot of bills.
Ooh,
So it
don't
goes
even
in
mention the
one
name
and out
bills.
the
Money
other.
and bills go together. They definitely go together. See,
But
the
I'm
more money
blessed.
you
I'm
make, the more
blessed.
bills you pay out, right?
That's
Uh-huh,
right.
that's
Yeah,
true.
I'm blessed.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
That's
good.
right.
Yeah.
So, we're going to go around. We're going to introduce who's who
Yes.
in this community for the Roundtable Podcast. Again, like this page, share
Yes.
this page. We're going to start to our back with Lady.
Hey, I'm
Lady
Lady B. What's
Got
up?
Lady
Hey, guys.
B
I
here.
do a little comedy on the side. You guys might not think it, but yes, I like to laugh because it makes me feel good, and I like to make other people laugh. So check me out at Bullies Be Like 1. That's Bullies, the letter B, like 1 on Instagram.
Instagram. Who else
Right.
we have in the house today?
RW3, I'll let your boy.
How's the boy?
Short version.
So,
Lovely Tea in the house.
Yeah,
CEO
Lovely
and
Tea.
founder of. Oh my gosh, my.
So stay with
Yes.
us.
Yep.
We got
Okay.
some hot things coming up that we want you guys to be involved in. So Lady B is going to introduce our guest.
Yes. So we have a special guest. His name is Mr. Keith Young. He is the founder
right.
of Acotech. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So Acotech is a science research organization made up of future scientists and engineers from major urban centers. Student scientists in Acotech range in age from 10 to 17 and are actively interested in solving international problems through science. The
Wow.
students work on a wide range of science projects
That's big.
to understand the role science plays in policy making at a global level. Many of our research projects are tied to United Nations activities.
Wow.
Wow, that
right.
sounds awesome.
Yes.
Just mentioning United Nations.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
A whole nother level.
Right,
Whole new game.
Yeah.
So, and that's something, guys. Listen, and before he begin to just give his introduction, I listen. We talking about science, and I guess what I would like to ask you in terms of African Americans, like, is it totally? I mean, how many people is in this program? Like, I mean, I don't know how the setup is. Maybe you're going to tell us how this is set up. Let us know, like, how many African Americans is actually a part of it as far as teenagers, whatever.
I mean, basically, I have labs in Detroit, Orlando, and Baltimore.
Okay.
And about 90% of the students are African American.
Wow.
Wow.
In my Florida lab, we have a significant number of Hispanic and Anglo-Saxon students.
Wow.
But the driver around African Americans being involved in science research is unique.
Yes.
Because it's a culture thing.
That's right.
All right. And so our challenge in places where we have laboratories is to change the culture
Right.
of innovation, right? So there's science that you copy, and then there's science that you contribute. And so we're on the contribution side. And as a result, a lot of the work that we do, it's difficult. It takes time. And when you start discussing science sometimes in our community, we do get some conflict in terms of who's responsible for the contribution.
Right.
And I think that's the process of getting students early enough to really talk to them about things like character, integrity, follow through, work ethic, dealing with challenging situations, being willing to take a risk. Sometimes in our culture, over time, you kind of get that pushed away, right? So that you have folks that don't want to try new things or even be more investigative. So, I do have students that come from Canada
Oh, wow.
to our Detroit lab, and they're not African American. So we've had all types of students that have come in, but for the most part, they're primarily African American.
And
Oh,
I was
wow.
going to say, Lady B, so we have a topic, right?
Yeah, we have a topic. So our topic was actually No Child Left Behind. Have we forgotten about the children? So in this episode, we will be discussing, has Generation Xers dropped the ball in making sure we are reaching back to help Generation Z, those children and youth who are ages 4 to 24 years of age. So what can we do to make sure we are playing a pivotal role in their lives?
Right.
That's so.
Well,
What can you
Well,
guys?
that's mainly the age group that you're working with.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I have a young lady in our lab who started in the first grade. She's in the sixth grade now. So on average, a student stays 8 years in our lab.
wow.
Like I get a chance to see them from,
wow.
fourth grade all the way to graduation. So Miles Frierson, he just graduated this past school year. He came in the lab when he was in the fifth grade.
Wow.
He graduated this year. So I got the
Kudos.
chance to
Kudos.
see that maturation
Okay.
Right.
of a person that could not only just, not only go to school, but also be able to, compete globally. So when Miles left, it was hard to see him go. It was hard to see him go
That's right.
because those are years that I spent with him.
Yeah.
And so he ended up, he's at Kettering University, and he did his first co-op and his
Okay.
co-op was in Chicago. So he
Okay.
worked for a company called Navistar. Now you got to think about this.
heard of that.
This boy's 17 years old. And he's
Wow.
working at a Fortune 50 company working on
Wow.
autonomous vehicles.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's big.
Yes.
You know, and
That's
what
yes.
that told me was that the investment was worth it.
That was worth it.
You know.
So
yes.
So, do you think we are looking more to the educational system to see after our children?
I think that's the problem. I think that's the
Oh.
problem. I built my laboratory for my kids. I did not ask the educator to do that.
Wow.
And so, as a result of having that mindset of self-investment, I could appreciate the outcomes better. And I think what we have, especially in the urban communities, is that we do have a systematic dependency, and we do have to break that.
That's
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
So if I look
Yeah.
at it, let's say for example, in the city of Detroit, you may have a school that has 1,000 students. Well, on average, the contribution from the federal government to that school district, just for that one school, for those 1,000 students, is almost $9 million.
Wow.
So if you get $9 million every year for 10 years, that's $90 million. And the average proficiency in science is less than 10%. Even a good investor would know that's a loss.
That's a
And they
loss.
would change up the portfolio. They would
That's
say,
big.
nah, you got to do something different.
So, real
yes.
quick. So, do you think that we are not reaching back enough because we have become too busy in terms of like a lot of people are stuck on social media.
Yes,
People
about
are
that.
stuck on trying to figure out their lives, who they're going to date
Oh,
next.
boy,
and,
y'all messed this.
trying
I'm
to
gonna
just
mess
figure
this
out
up.
the
I'm
list
gonna
goes-
mess this up.
yeah, the list just goes on and
You
on.
gonna put me in front of the microphone with this here? Okay. So to your question, we have allowed the systems that worked to erode, like the system of accountability, the system of follow through, and integration of what we know works with the field of science. Like we do know there are certain things like lemon juice is still pretty good for cleaning glass. Like you don't want to discount that just because the folks at Johnson & Johnson make the window cleaner. Like you don't want to discount the fact that there's a role for us in everything we do.
That's right.
And I think that's what's happened. And I see that in the students that come into the lab is that they become more systematically dependent rather than knowing what systems work and how to leverage those systems to be successful in science and research. So I think we have dropped the ball, because I told a friend of mine not too long ago, I said, man, you know what? Our generation messed it up. And he said, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, Detroit could be 10 times better if we just did half of the things we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
If you just do 50% of it,
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
we would have half the issues that we're dealing
That's
with.
right.
So,
I mean, yeah.
So, what do you guys think? What do you
Well,
guys?
I'm a mess.
With
That's right.
I guess my question, I don't know, question statement,
Yes.
and I agree. Of course, the data supports in terms of about the science.
Yes.
And I struggle with, when we're talking about, for example, when I was in a school, as a principal, two specific situations. When I was in a high school as an assistant principal, and there was a student who was an athlete, and he had and he got into a fight. He ended up getting suspended or whatever the case may be. I said, well, you can't play, right? But because he's one of the better athletes, and they told me
He got passes.
there was some that's what I'm saying. There was some scouts supposed to be there. They wanted me to pull it back, and I was trying to explain that, we can't. Culturally, it seems like we put more emphasis on the pathway to athletics or athletic professionalism as opposed to the science. And I got a lot of pushback from parents and
Right.
other people saying that no, he should be able to. I said, well, if he breaks his leg, I always tell people if you become a paraplegic from the neck down, if you got it here, I mean, physically it doesn't matter if you have it here.
Yes.
And another situation when I was a middle school or K-8 principal, and I wanted to raise the GPA for, basically the athletes to 2.5 as opposed to 2.0.
You had
And
you
the
got an
parents,
uproar.
what? Because I said
Yeah.
you're student athletes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And like you said, I try to emphasis. We had a science fair,
Mm-hmm.
and we invited people from the community. We made a big deal. They looked up different inventions and how to make things happen, and we invited community people to come in and look, so people the young people can be excited.
That's right.
About science. So,
and a couple of things too. Like for one, you don't see a lot of faces of color
That's
in
right.
science. Not to say that there weren't faces of people
Yeah.
of color that contributed. They're not in the history books.
That's right.
They're not given
Yeah.
a light, given a face.
That's right. I
However,
mean, it's true.
back to your point, you do see a lot of people of color in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that could be
in certain sports too.
well, yeah, and
Yeah,
that could be a
well.
factor. But also, too, I wanted to speak to what do you think about within the African American culture the economic status, right? Because we know that the middle class is shrinking. There's more disparity. You're either in the have or the have-nots.
Have-nots.
That's right.
And so, opportunities. It's almost like kids are being grouped into either you have the money to expose and lend access, increase access to certain things, or you don't.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think plays a part in more of our kids, especially those in the public school system, having access to programs like yours?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. Science is an economic advantage, and every student that has an opportunity to learn science, they're actually being put on the pathway to economic independence. And what I'd like to see more of in our schools is the pathway for students to investigate things, right? So like not too long ago, CBS did a news story on our lab, and I talked about, we don't tell them what they should do, and we don't tell them that their ideas are bad. We give them a platform to investigate their ideas. And I think that's a behavior and it's a cultural perspective on learning. Like in the lab, as you know, there is no you can't do. It's go ahead and do it and let's see what happens.
That's right.
And what that does is that gives them confidence in learning how to fall forward. And I don't think that's always encouraged. And so when you have families that can do a little bit more than a family that can't do as much, I don't know if you create an advantage there, because at some point in the game, there's going to be the challenge where the person that can more economically afford it, they won't be able to buy what work will be able to get for their child.
That's right.
Like their child can live off of the benefit of what mom and dad can do for up to a point.
That's right.
And then at some point you run into
They have to put
Let me say, because I want you to
their
respond
own
to something. It's going to be about you, Dean. I want to
Okay.
say something.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily agree. I mean, the have-nots. And I do agree about when you said, in terms of the system. For example, the fact that if I'm a principal of a maybe impoverished or, population, I can still make the decisions to expose them. Doesn't matter how much money they have.
That's
I'm just
true.
going to use Blue Shield Media, for example. I've made choices to bring a media company in and expose the children to it. His company offers how to work behind the camera, editing, things of that nature. It doesn't matter, the educators and the system have to make a decision
That's right.
to bring in
That's right.
Are
You
they
know,
doing that though?
what I mean. That's why he said in terms of depend on the system. Some educators are making a conscious decision to do so, and Tone can speak to this more so because he's run into some who are prepared, and he's actually took down his costs so he can expose them,
Yeah.
the young
Right.
people, to the media. And
Yeah.
besides just being in front of the camera, all the other things that media
Yeah.
offer. So I don't think it's a have-nots. It's the system. Because, I have to determine, like you said, if
Yeah,
my
that
budget
would-
is $15 million
Right.
at one school I was at, I have to make a decision to invest
That's right.
in those
Right.
things.
That's right,
It doesn't
100%.
matter if the kids are poor or not.
That's right.
The leadership has to make a decision.
Yeah.
The
So
Yeah.
district
So
has
as
to
part
make
of
a
that-
decision.
But as part of that decision, allocating monies to more basic need type of things for those kind of schools. I'm not an administrator, so I don't know.
Well, it's not, because science is, I mean, is part of the curriculum, right?
Okay. Right.
I have to make a decision if, do I want to have a science fair where they can investigate? Because they have the Common Core standards in the states that you have to do the bare minimum, but the bare minimum is not enough.
Yeah,
But and you're saying too, just to keep it kind of in line with the topic, is that you as the administrator, so we can assume that most of the administrators are going to be Gen X, baby boomer, somewhere up in there. Are the administrators making those kind of decisions? Like I would say STEM became popular recently, like within the last 8-10 years. Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't always a push for STEM, and now it's steep. Because now they're trying to bring back the arts and culture and everything. But I'm just saying, like, related to our topic in terms of, is Generation X doing what they're supposed to do in terms of bringing Generation Z?
See, but see, I know you about to say, but I guess my thing is, I want to pull back a little bit. Just pull back. I want to talk about STEM, the program, because there's a lot of people out there that may be watching and may be like, what is this?
What is STEM?
So what is it that your program? What do you provide first? Let's get there. What do you provide?
Yeah, we provide a opportunity for students to do research. And so all of our research is with the United Nations, and it's around global issues that people around the world are trying to solve. That's important for a couple reasons. When you start to think about STEM as an acronym is science, technology, engineering, and math. But what does that really mean? I mean, as a person that is trying to make sure that the water is clean, like, what does that really mean? What that means is that I have clean water.
That's right.
For someone who's saying, hey, we have brownouts in our country, or we have issues around power continuity. Like, what does that mean? That means that the lights are going to be on. And so when I look at STEM, I look at STEM within our laboratories as a place where people can come up with solutions that can benefit them and their community and beyond their community. In our laboratory, we have 15 startup companies. These are not companies that are built off of ideas that someone else gave us. These are companies that we formed. So we have a company called Autonomous Security, where we do cybersecurity for self-driving cars, but more importantly, all autonomous devices.
Wow, that's big.
We have a startup company called Neutronics that's specifically focused on neuroscience and robotics. Miss Tracy's son is involved in a company called AIT, Advanced Immersive Technology, where we're doing virtual reality applications and work with NASA to track low orbit satellites.
Awesome.
Like, we're doing that.
Okay, great.
And so, to the point that really is the driving force is that we want to be a part of the success of science, not just the consumer of it.
Exactly.
And we change that behavior in a laboratory.
This is my thing. And now I'm talking to my viewing audience, whoever watching it, listen, this is so big right here. Okay, maybe he's been out for a while.
Yeah, our laboratory in Detroit's been here for 14 years.
14 years. But listen, I'm going to tell you, it hasn't been, listen, it's more, and it's growing even more. Science is, oh my God, it grows so more, and we need more scientists. And to say in our community, African Americans, you have scientists, just African Americans that's out there, but I'm saying that we can have more.
Right.
True.
And in this society that we live, that's based on a global. I mean, we're global now. I mean, everything is about being global.
Oh,
everything is about being global
sure
now.
is.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about New World Order, but
Okay, no.
everything is about global. It's a global society now. It's not about really just your state, your city.
Right.
It's moving out now. So, do you know how important this is? I know how big this is. I know how great this is, and that we will have our own, African American young people. And who are the ages this here again? Maybe you might have said it, but I want to say it again. What's the ages here?
We normally accept students into our lab starting at age 9.
Wow.
But we've taken students as early as age 7.
Wow.
Which is like a second grader. So we had this we have this chemistry exam that we give to all the students, right? And so we have a young lady, her name's London, little London Webb. She's in the 2nd grade. So she took the test. The test is really for like a 9th grader, 10th grader. And so I gave her a test. And so London gets a 55%. I said, okay, London, that's really good for a 2nd grader. But I want you to take this test back, and I want you to sit down with your dad, and I need y'all to talk about these answers and make sure. So I gave her about 45 minutes to go back and review. And I said, okay, we're going to give you the test again. She got 100%.
Wow.
Awesome.
Now, the first thing I thought to myself was, wow, this is what I got to deal with?
That's right. That's right.
And you only 7?
That's right. Only 7.
Well, the first thing I thought to myself was like, wow, you know what? We got a superstar here.
That's right.
And we got to cultivate this talent.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Like, so we got to block.
How do students apply? Is there a financial
Yes.
investment? From the parents. Can you give us a?
Typically, families come to our laboratory. I go and talk to students and I talk to school leaders, but it's really through a family network. Yeah. Families talk to other families. The students come in with their family, and we kind of sit around the table like we're doing now, and we talk about what the goal is. So, like, well, why would a student, have an interest in a laboratory? Is the student passionate about learning?
That's right.
Or is the student just interested? Because if you're just interested, you can go back to school and they can do some experiments.
That's
but,
right.
to be passionate means that you're going to come on a day when everybody else is still in the bed.
That's right.
And so I'm looking for that character.
That's right.
When you have a family who says, you know what, we don't have it, but we're going to make sacrifices.
That's right.
The parents might say, well, how much is it going to cost? I was like, well, you really can't buy it. But what would you contribute if it was important to you? Well, Mr. Young, I can only do $25 a month. Okay, that's what it is. But we know why we're making that investment.
That's right.
I'll give you a good example. I climbed Mount St. Helens, right? So we get on the plane. So one of the 4th graders, he was at a school in Benton Harbor. He said, Mr. Young, my teacher said that igneous rock comes from volcanoes. I said, well, what did she show you? So she showed me a YouTube video of volcanic rock, and lava. I was like, well, that's okay, but like, where's the rock? So well, there's really no rock, but I could show you the video. I said, I'm not interested in seeing the video. So I told him, I said, son, we're going to go. And some of the guys, we're going to go and get this volcanic rock for you.
Wow.
And so for 3 months, when I would visit a school, I always had a backpack on, and I had weights in the backpack. I walked the hallways, 4th grader, right? And I'm walking the hallways, and well, Mr. Young, why you keep coming to that school with this backpack on? Because I'm preparing myself.
That's right.
I'm preparing for the struggle.
That's right.
So we take a couple guys from our Detroit lab, and we fly out there to Washington State,
Wow.
right? We get on the plane.
That's big.
They said, well, Mr. Young, how are you going to do this? And one lady said, well, how did y'all afford that? I said, well, we stopped going to McDonald's.
That's right.
I said, we started holding on to our money. So we hold on to the money. We get to get to Washington State. And they said, well, where you going to stay? I said, well, Motel 8 got a little,
That's
little
right,
place
that's
there,
right.
but
That's right.
we're going to put all that Burger King money on this
That's right.
hotel.
That's
Then
right.
we climbed up 7,800 feet and got the volcanic rock and flew back home. So I get back to the school, and I walk in with the bag, and I put my hand in the bag, and you could hear a pin drop. And one of the kids said, I think he got the rock.
Wow.
I pulled the rock out the bag.
See,
I could have been Michael Jordan.
And that's good. And that's what we talk about reaching back, though.
But see,
That's
but see,
that.
but this is the thing. This is the thing.
Piquing their interest.
This is
That's
what-
it, with
but
the sacrifice that we're willing to make to get that interest going.
But listen to this. The thing that bothers me is that we have schools that have budgets, and they choose and pick where the budget
That's
should
right.
go
They do.
instead of and
Yep.
I'm going to jump out there
Jump
like I
out
always
there.
do. A lot of times it hinders the child and it benefits whoever's the administration is. And maybe that's not you, but we have so many corrupted administrators who know how to do whatever they need to do with those dollars.
Yep.
And to some degree, they've dropped the ball. I'm talking about my educators. I'm just going.
Yep.
I'm just
Right,
jumping on
the
my
Gen
educators.
Xers and baby boomers.
When we have
That's true.
an independent company that steps in and go above and beyond. We're talking about
Yes.
science. We're not talking about something is, I don't know how small you want to get. Drawing, coloring, and all this.
Yep.
All, they're trying to be creative. Yeah, okay, but we're talking about science. Which
Yep.
is something that's needed in this world, especially in America. I
Yeah.
mean, you have different people all over the world. They work on science. Science can go is a broad. I mean, it can go in so many areas. But
Yeah.
I'm saying that when we have educators that have grant monies, budget. I mean, he said 15 million. I believe that's what you said. What if those dollars was allocated towards areas that's going to help improve?
Yes.
We're talking about science.
Well, in
Oh,
the
my goodness,
presentation
that's so-
that attracts, that's culturally relevant, right?
yeah.
Like Dr. Young was saying, you know, if you say, I think a kid would be interested if they said, you know, especially if they were from Flint, and they was like, you know what, I want to make sure that
That's right.
we have clean water.
That's right.
They may not equate that, and I don't want to minimize how smart our children are, but I'm just saying that may not automatically translate into, well, that's science.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so kids, if they have limited exposure at home, you know, because of
Yeah.
unfortunate circumstances, their
Right.
environment, you know,
That's right.
all they're seeing is, you know, videos,
That's
and
right.
this, that, and the other.
Yep.
You know, they have to be exposed and understand that this simple thing over here is science.
It is.
That's
But
right.
is it fair to, you know, that's why community partnerships are critical. Just like any city, like the quote unquote comeback of Detroit, you know, just off
Tale
the
of two
taxpayers'
cities.
monies and investment into downtown and neighborhoods cannot be 100% dependent upon the government. The government just doesn't have the government's job to create the environment for certain things to take place, to
Right.
stimulate economic growth and, you know, things of that nature. So we're talking about the school system, you know, and Tom make a good point. For my budget, I have to sit and determine, you know, how to, where and how to allocate monies. And part of it is the school in isolation can't do it alone. I mean, we have to
agree.
have philanthropy, partnerships,
Right.
and things of that nature in order to
Yeah.
make it happen. Because,
That's so
you know,
true.
sometimes, you know, you know, we have children, again, sometimes in the schools, they're coming, no clothes, no food.
That's
so
what I'm saying, those
a lot of
basic
dollars have to
needs.
be invested. You have to determine,
That's right. what
you
I
know,
was asking
how am I
earlier.
going to,
Right.
you know, invest these dollars,
That's right.
or you know,
Right.
That's
so
right. I mean, yeah.
Well, and that's what I was asking earlier, because again, that leads to me saying, going back to the have and the have-nots. I mean, I don't even consider myself middle class. I'm just working class. But I
well, you upper middle, but go ahead.
No. Anyway,
Yeah,
don't
but-
believe
go-
that.
you go-
But
say.
anyway, I
You can reach her on the Round Table Podcast.
I
Donations are
That's why, yes.
I'm just playing with donations. So go
as a
ahead.
parent, I guess I get, and my son is blessed to have family that gets the value of education,
That's right.
and that understands that we are moving into a global market, and so
right.
you
Yes.
have to be competitive.
Well, we're
not
in a
only
global market.
well, we're in a global market, and you have to be competitive, and so there's a push there, you know. And so if I have to, and so I don't depend. I guess my point is, I stopped depending on the school system a long time ago. Like
Right.
if you can give me 7 of the 10 things I'm looking for, I'm more than willing to go find elsewhere.
But you would settle for that.
Because
let me-
I am not going to depend
Uh-oh.
solely on the school
Uh-oh, he
system.
done opened his
But
eyes.
hold on, but let me say this. Let me say-
do everything.
Okay, but listen, what I'm saying. Okay,
Like you
so
were saying.
my son, you know, he's in a Novi school, and they go above and beyond.
But look at where you at,
But, hold on, but
Novi.
listen, what I'm saying. Let me say, that's still no excuse, because my thing is, even though the dollar makes sense, I mean, it's always about the dollar in schools, but it's also about the spark, the interest of the teachers. Well, sometimes we got to go past how much I'm making. And if I get a paycheck today, or, I mean, school teachers have changed since I was in school, and even
yeah.
before me,
Oh,
where
yes.
they are excited to teach. And when in terms of this global, I mean, just the whole global community, however you want it, it's so much in this area where you have to be better than the next. Now we're fighting against countries. We're not fighting against Southfield versus Novi. We fighting. It's global now.
Right.
It's us
Oh,
against
yeah.
Israel. Israel against Russia. Russia doing so many great
Yeah.
things from Russia to China. China just off the. If you've been looking at, this is something I look at every day. I look
Yeah.
at global every day from China to Russia and see what's going on. Their technology levels, not just even in excitement, but their technology levels are so far
advanced.
out. Even Israel. So what I'm saying is that our teacher have to get to the point. I think that we need to look at our teachers. I don't think that anybody should be a teacher these days. You need to go and whatever they need to do, they need to change some things where just because you say that it seemed like it can be easier for me to get a degree I've known people who went to school and told me, I'm going to just go ahead and be a teacher. That's what they said. I'm just going to go ahead and be
Like it was a
like it
second
was the Lord.
choice or-
Exactly. So I'm going to be a teacher.
Wow.
So what am I saying? When we have independent people, are you a nonprofit?
We are. All of our startup companies are for-profit, though.
So just for him to even come up and say, this is what we're going to do. Listen, I've been in the school district. I've seen how they work.
Oh, yeah.
Sit down with principals, and when I give them my bottom line, we got to figure this out. And I'm talking about, listen,
Technology.
45,000
Media,
a year.
media.
We're talking about 40. I'm gonna throw the $45,000
A year,
That's
right.
what we charge to come in your school for that year.
Teach your
$45,000. We're talking about something that's changing the world every day, from science to the media to the digital. People are making money off what we do.
Absolutely.
They're changing companies in terms of, it's not about television anymore. Everything is pushed out to
Live
social media.
media.
It's digital now. We're
Yep.
teaching these kids how to make
Yep.
this thing happen.
That's
and
true.
you're talking about $45,000.
A year. You can't invest that in your children.
And we're taking the
future.
laws. We're taking the laws. Trust me when I tell you, we're taking the laws. So my thing is that we talking about science. So my thing is, even though he's doing what these guys are doing, what they do, and they're great at it, obviously. But what about our science teacher that's in the class? They're sitting just in the class. Science teachers in the class. Go ahead and just speak. Just go ahead. I want you to put.
Yeah, I would say no different than what we said earlier. Is that it's the culture.
Yeah.
So like I can go into certain communities. So let's say, for example, in our Florida lab, there's a research project that we've been working on for a number of years. It's around citrus greening. And citrus greening is a plant-based disease that affects citrus groves. So you get less oranges, thus you get less orange juice. And so a lot of those families that live there are impacted by the fact that the packing plant for Florida's natural made clothes, right? So I told them, I said, hey, look, we need to make sure that whatever we do in science, it needs to be connected to that community. So one thing led to another, and I connected them with our partner at the USDA Biobank in Denver, Colorado. And I said, you know what? Find your science teacher, and we're going to take a whole group of students from this community to Denver to figure out how we address this plant-based disease. I show up at the school. The flight left from Orlando. This community is down in Lake Wales, which is about 45 minutes from Orlando, Southwest. And the families were wrapped around the building at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And all we were there is to take the cheese. We took the yellow cheese bus to Orlando, right?
Right.
I talked to the school leader. I said, man, how in the world did you find funding for 30 kids
Wow.
plus all the science teachers to get on the airplane with me to go to Colorado to meet with these bioscientists on plant science? He said, I don't know how I did it, but we did it because it was necessary.
That's right.
So
That's
his name
right.
is Dr. Damian Moses. We always say, Moses taking us to the promised
That's
land.
right.
I got a comment.
That's big. That's big.
It is from our own producer. Anyway, she said, I read an article once that some teachers are judged based on students' merit. If their students are doing bad, that is a reflection of their teaching, and they must approve that score in order to possibly keep their jobs. Have you guys heard of that?
So
I
there
can believe
is
that.
that perception that a student that is doing poorly academically will impact the teacher's continuity and employment. Here's what I say. If a teacher is allowing the student to learn, then that performance will start to reflect the culture that that teacher supports. So in my laboratory, in the city of Detroit, or since they've had the MEP or the M-STEP, the scores in the city have been around about 7 to 10% proficiency. It's been 100% proficiency in our lab for a decade, and I'm still trying to figure out how do we really do it, because I don't visit the schools. I don't go to all the schools that the students come from. I don't know their teachers.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of times you say, well, geez, the average SAT is a 1450, which a perfect score is a 1600. The average ACT is a 31, which the perfect score is a 36. Yeah. So I'm asking myself, like, well, is it the book that we're giving them? I don't think it's the book. I think it's the culture of accountability.
That's right.
And also, she
right.
wants to know, STEM is a big deal, but within African American communities, isn't as big as it should be. Why? Would you say that's due to a lack of parent involvement or investment in their children's education, or the school system not being as strong as it should be, especially within the urban communities?
I think it's the culture of how we see science. In many cases, we see it as something that we consume.
That's right.
Like I make my own lemonade. I don't ask, what is the little lemonade package that you put in there?
Yeah, Kool-Aid.
Yeah, Kool-Aid.
Also.
Yeah, I don't buy their stuff. It is a behavior. And as much as we really want to say that is a lack of funding, there is, you need to have the right person making the decision about the use of the funds. That is the decision.
That's the key.
That's
the key.
I mean,
Yes.
because I don't get $15 million, but if I did, I'd turn it to $200 million.
That's right.
But just the fact that just the little funding that we get, we've turned that into 15 startup companies. We've turned that into internships. And for that, it's a culture of how you use the resources that you get. So I'm thinking of our resources as an investment. And what you find with families is that when you tell them that they have to put in $25, they look at it as a spend.
Yeah.
And when you think of it as a spend, you don't see anything coming
That's right.
back.
That's right.
And I think when Obama,
Yeah.
I forgot what it was called, when we were doing No Child Left Behind,
Yeah,
he gave us that additional
Oh, yeah.
dollars, and I was getting all this extra money. I said, okay, I know this is not going to last, so am I going to invest and just hire all these people, or am I going to invest in technology or something that's going to outlive
Right.
that the school can use beyond? Because once you hire, once the money runs out,
Yeah.
people going to
That's
get
it.
laid off.
Yeah, that's right.
But how
Right.
do we invest in, like you said, those resources that will outlive the human capital?
Yeah.
Well,
You
and
know,
it's a tough place to be in, I would imagine, because again, if you're in a poverty-stricken area, like again, do you spend that money hiring more social workers because you have kids that are in need of various services, or do you spend it on bringing in a robotic something or another? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong there. I'm just saying I can respect the difficulty when you are dealing with issues that are, like I say, more attached to just basic need for a kid to be able to come in and not be hungry or not know where they're going to lay their head, and that's the reason they can't focus in class. Versus because how do you really get into a well, I don't even want to say that, because for some kids it might be an escape for them to go into an investigative mode and
It is.
and dive
It is.
into it. So I don't want to
It
say
is.
that, but as an administrator, when you have limited resources, it must be difficult to make those kind of choices.
It's
15 million though. I don't know if that's.
well,
I think that's.
I think
That's adequate
see,
funding.
Yeah, you just got to
see,
put that together.
I mean, there's a lot. Like
You know.
the thing about it is, it's so system driven, where just like a vehicle, all the parts need to be working collaboratively
Right.
and cohesively or in concert in order for the car to be optimum. So, for example, what I tried to do, when the students came to school, I would make the assumption that nothing else is. I can't control parents,
Right.
what's happening at home. My thing is, when you come here, that's the only thing I had to use control, but that I have influence or the power to manage. So my thing was, I'm going to assume that they're not getting help at home with homework. So I'm not going to when we're doing the grading and breaking out the percentages, I'm not going to put homework 50% of a grade.
Right.
You know, as opposed to homework, because homework is supposed to reinforce what was learned.
Class. Mhm.
So what if, like for example, I don't know calculus. So when my son was in high school, for him to come home and ask me to help him in calculus, my degree is in psychology. You know, so you know what's happening in the school that can create once the core is taught, and for that student in school to get support in that school environment. So my mind was when they came to school, we would have breakfast. We had funds, my Title I funds, towards tutoring and after school programs and to support them. All the things. So when they left, if nothing happens between when you leave the school and come back in the morning, we can't blame. I'm not gonna blame the parent because it's not. I mean, the children, you can't control what they were born into. So I can't hold them accountable. The fact that their situation is what it is.
But then if Tony came in and said, hey, because you done spent this money, like you say, on food and other resources. Hey, I got this wonderful program. I mean, it's great. It's going to cost you. You know what I'm saying? What are you willing to sacrifice in order to have that program to see? And this
is the last time for Tony to jump in, but this is the key though.
Not much.
But this is the key. Another part of, again, systematically, people assume that because I'm quote unquote a good or great teacher, that that will translate to being a great leader, or a person who can manage resources and budgets and things of that nature. So what happens is when people transition from the classroom or they get their administrative certification and they're not trained on budgeting,
that's right,
grants,
the business of the school,
how to, for just a super short version, like when I went to New York and I got recruited, I took over the school, and then once I went and assessed what was going on during the interview process and they offered me the job, I said, okay, there's a lot of quote unquote politicking and relationship building as a principal that I'll need to do as well as being the instructional leader. So I told them, if you want me, I need to be able to bring somebody from Detroit with me to be my assistant principal, and she needs I brought her with me. I said, and she needs to be able to get a bonus to come too, and what have you, because I knew, for this a quick example, because here in Michigan, special education, the school, if a student comes to my school, our team determines if, based on the IDEA law, if a child classified for special education services. In New York, in a charter school, a student can come to your school, but the district from which it came from, they make a decision if the child can get services in your school. And at that time, I mean, some traditional districts were not happy about charter schools.
Right.
So I knew coming in, when I came in the summer, I'm going to have to go to these schools, develop some relationships, because I'm going to have to partner with them in order to be able to get the services I need for my children. Right. But, I mean, from experience, I knew that. So, but if everyone is not trained, so some people might just go into school and, and have a contentious relationship with the partners. So there's a lot of things in terms of becoming an instructional leader or a school leader. I don't think people are trained from coming from the classroom to, now macro, I'm managing a system, and I'm parents, community partners, teachers.
Let me ask you. Okay, so let me go here. This is what I would like to know. So, to me, I think that a lot of things starts at the home. Okay, so schools have pretty much, to me, taken over. It's because sometimes, and I would say in our black communities, the black homes, is because a lot of the parents aren't really what you might call educated in the area to understand what it is their child needs in terms of to deal in this global society, where you have some communities, you guys already know who those communities are, where they're a lot more on hands with the teacher, working with the schools to say, hey, listen, whatever you need me to do, I'm here to volunteer so that my child can get the best education as possible. So my thing is that it's and what I want to know from you is this. Okay, so because this is going to help me out with some things that I'm dealing with right now. Okay, so if you had this wish list, right, about what it is you knew that would make your program even more successful, other than money, what would that be?
Curious families.
That's right.
Curious parents.
I knew you was gonna go there.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I knew he was gonna go there because see, this is my thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a lack of education. You know, we
Yeah.
quick to throw the basketball, the football,
Yep.
the singing, everything
Yep.
else in their hands.
Right.
But when it comes to what's actually changing this society, this global world, scientists is at the
Yeah.
top.
Science and
It's
technology.
there up the top. Exactly, it's there at the top. So if we educate our parents on why this is needed, listen, okay, I understand that you want your child to catch the football. You know, you want to get tackled, it might set you up. You know what I mean? To make some money. But what I'm trying to share with you, and I'm dealing more with my African American community, we have to be more educated in what it is that's going on in this society. Not more so what's best for my child, but look and see what's going on in society and understand that, listen, scientists is a big deal.
Yeah.
Science is a big deal. So my thing is that for my community, for my parents, and then, you know, you draw off into another different conversation about where I wanted to do a documentary on kids raising kids. And it just
Yeah.
it progressed. You know what I mean? Where it be young kids and they just grow up. They still have that young mind, but they just get older. So it's because they never was taught. I'm talking about my African American community. So and that's a whole different conversation. But I'm saying is that when we begin to educate our community, and listen. You know
Well,
what?
here, I
This
gotta-
is so big to tackle.
Okay.
It's so big to tackle.
Because
But
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, I was
Go
going to
ahead.
ask a question with you all. Like, so how do we, Generation Xers, baby boomers, how do we cultivate a culture of curiosity and not consumption? Because that's where, like, it started with Generation Xers. It's definitely taken over with millennials. And so our Generation Z. You know, it's like
right.
a perpetuation of just like we're consumers. Like can you, like, it used to be that and I usually talk about African American community specifically, that we had African American farmers.
That's right.
You know, we had African Americans in agriculture and
right.
and the trades, and where they were, you know, my granddaddy would ride me around and say, you know, I built that building or I laid the bricks over there.
That's right.
You know, and there was a sense of pride
That's
there.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
because he contributed to
That's
something.
right.
And we went
it's
from
big.
that to consumption. Gimme.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
entitled. I want, you know,
Wow.
and so, like you were saying, you are trying to cultivate within your program the future of those who will contribute to science. How do we cultivate that kind of culture?
The narrative has already been placed out where now it's all about social media. Digital, online has pretty much, I don't know how you guys look at it, but if I don't push the button to cut out the internet in my house, it ain't, you know, they're gonna have that computer in their hand. It's their
Bring up a
science.
very good
You know what I
point.
mean? So
Yeah.
if I don't say, hey, get off the video game, I need you to use your brain
Yeah.
today.
Right.
Yes.
I want you to use. It's gonna
Oh,
be
my
the
Lord.
parents, but then I can see how easy it can be when I don't want to be bothered. To say, hey, look, here, play this.
Stay on
I
there.
know how easy and simple that is. If I leave and I need
Not
to conduct
involved.
business to keep you busy, hey,
Yeah.
go ahead and do it. Instead of saying, I need you to pick those books up. I need you to go. Listen, when I was growing up, we were outside.
Yeah.
Yes.
Science.
Yes, we were.
Listen, we were outside. We were
Playing with
learning
rocks,
things. And
everything.
when I mean outside, I don't mean just outside going over her house and his house. I mean we was outside. Whatever
Right.
that means to you.
Playing
we were outside,
Foursquare,
exactly
double dutch,
figuring things out
hopscotch.
on
Yep.
our own. That doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't.
It's inside. It's in the house. It's me going to the mall if they still do that. But me going over his house to play video game, whatever it is. And
Or
that-
your parents have paid for you to be in a league.
That's right.
Or in a
To keep you
music
busy.
class. Or
That's
in a
right.
dance class.
Keep you busy.
So, I
Go
mean,
ahead.
but to you guys' point around how do you make what we do, like we have to do some of those things, I think you almost have to have a community conversation with people around why things are the way they are, and then really start to take some real actions toward it. I'll give you a good example. Back in 2008, I took a group of students and a couple families to South Africa. We went to Cape Town, South Africa, to study great white sharks. Right, I knew nothing about great white sharks before I went, and you wanna set the tone that interaction requires real communication, and real communication develops more of a understanding of things, right?
That's right.
So, having things like, let's say, like the BP oil spill, we went down and we helped out with the BP oil spill when Obama was president, but we learned that you can use bacteria to eat oil, right? So it could go through like a cellular respiration process. So we took that information, and one day we had a young man in the lab. His name's Chandler Harris. He's a senior at Michigan now, getting his degree in aerospace engineering.
Wow.
He said, Mr. Young, I want to go to MIT. I said, well, Chandler, what we going to take over there? Because we just can't drive over to MIT and drive around the school and say we were there. And he said, well, I said, go online and find out what type of research they're doing. So they had a guy there who's doing some research on how to reduce climate change by making cement a little bit cleaner. And so I said, well, why don't we make our own cement? Because we know that sometimes cars in our community have like leaks. So you drive the car up in the driveway and you got the little oil pan that's leaking. So you leave cement and you got an oil stain when you back out. Well, we took our knowledge of bacteria and how it eats oil, and we embedded it in the cement.
Wow.
And it was oil-eating cement. So we called a guy at MIT. We said, hey, we're working on some oil-eating cement, and we've proven that some of our cement can eat oil, like hydrocarbons.
That's big.
He said, man, you said you can get out here tomorrow.
That's right.
I said, let's get in the car and drive right now. We drove 12 hours all the way to
Oh my
Boston.
God.
And
That's what I'm saying.
But do you understand what I'm
That's
saying?
big. I know exactly
I
what you're
was
saying.
willing to learn, and I was willing to fail, and I would accept him saying no.
That's right.
And for that, I gave us space to learn it. And we ended up starting a company. It's called Harris Engineering. And so, Chandler's in charge of it. But it's just the fact that if Generation Xers are going to see better benefits for like the Generation Z, we have to put ourselves in a position of being uncomfortable.
That's right.
That's what I've done for the last 14 years. That's why
right.
I learned so much.
That makes sense.
Wow.
And
that's good.
how do I don't necessarily have the answer right now, but how do we? Because when we talk about, because young people, they see like you said, the rapping and the lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Right.
They say, what is the shortest path to get money and get to that lifestyle?
That's true.
That takes when I came up, like I said, we were outside. It was a vacant house. We can put crates up, basketball, no money, and
That's right.
play full court with built crates.
Oh, absolutely.
Or we could be out
Did you have the blue ones?
and the blue ones,
The light
and
blue
we would
ones
be
too.
out playing two-hand touching the street sideline tackle on the grass.
right.
Oh, yeah.
right.
Out there is what
Or
you
when
do.
Billy Sands was
That's what you
playing, we
do.
could be in the snow
That's right.
and dive over the top.
That's right.
So one thing
That's
is,
true.
I think they see, even though science can provide actually the same lifestyle,
Sure.
because they see, you can make financial, you get financially stable and things of that nature. But it seems that I want the shortest, quickest route to get to this lifestyle, and I think some young people see it as, well, that's a long route. So how do we, how do we create something that they can touch, feel?
Right.
Because they need
And I don't
like
think-
in our community, right?
Right.
Someone that's in the community, this brother,
Right.
who I can touch and feel and see,
Very true.
and see is real, as opposed to. But I see more,
very true.
everybody rhyming and everybody.
Right,
I see
right.
more of that. That seems more realistic than this.
And to some degree, it's not realistic because
Right.
it's not so easy to obtain.
Exactly.
We live in a microwave society.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
how we've pushed things
Yep.
so much that it's about being instant, even to the gadgets that we have today in terms of technology. Everything is microwave. And even if you don't have it in your home, it's microwave now. Turning lights, warming the temperature down in the room. I mean, everything is all about easy access.
I think the pendulum is swinging a little bit because
You say it again?
I think the pendulum is swinging a little bit.
In terms of what?
Well, because there are more kids. I mean, they even have commercials now that are dropping. I mean, for a different reason, but that are dropping out of sports at younger ages. And I know for me, a big issue was all the research on concussions and being hit in the head and all of that. So a lot of parents are kind of steering their children away from those contact sports, and you do, and so that creates space for kids to become curious in other things.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I
Hopefully
do think,
so. I mean, hopefully.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then you deal with charter versus public.
Okay.
In terms of school district, and what's more accurate or what's more acceptable, what they're doing, and private owned companies now with schools, and now is you just trying to get a child through school so that you can get money. I mean, it's a lot.
So,
because at the time
yeah.
I wasn't for charter schools. To some degree, still ain't. But I mean, my thing is that it's so much in the game now that it goes back to the parent and
Most
making sure
definitely,
the
most
parent
definitely.
the parents sometimes have to be disciplined themselves in order to actually raise their child in the area of this type of society so that they can grow in this society. And I thank God for your program.
Absolutely.
It's been
Yes.
out for some time.
Yes,
I
great.
thank God for your program because it lets me know that we're still in the area of teaching our kids or
That's right.
allowing
That's
them
right.
to want to learn
That's right.
in the area of science, which is, I believe, is very, very, very important.
You bring up a very good point, though. We have a segment in our lab. It's called Young Explorers, and it's specifically geared to giving students an opportunity to explore. Go outside, figure out what's going on, collect some rain, collect some snow, learn how to fly a drone. Go look for some frogs on Belle Isle.
Wow.
Get out there.
Yeah, that's good.
But we had a young man. His name's Demarius Clemens. Demarius is a senior at Michigan. He's getting his degree in computer science. So Demarius played football, and he was a good football player. We went to the United Nations one year, and Demarius, he played for the West Side Steelers. And he showed me a video of him in the championship game. He played safety, punt return, and he played corner. And I was like, wow, man, this is outstanding. What's going to happen if you get hurt?
Yeah.
He said, Mr. Young, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm too good. I was like, okay, Demarius. So he played his first year at Renaissance, got hurt. ACL kind of situation. So he comes back to the lab. He says, Ms. Young, I want to go ahead and, get back in the lab. And I said, well, I'm going to be that 250-pound linebacker, but you ain't going to be able to outrun me. You ain't going to be able to run me over because this chemistry book don't move that easily. So long story short, he graduates from the Renaissance, goes off to Michigan. And I wrote a story about him. I said, from cornerback to chemical engineer.
Wow. Wow.
Very important. And I showed that to the guys at PAL the other day. And I said, I got a bunch of tight ends that do archaeology.
Wow.
I got a lot of guys that play running back who can do robotics.
Right.
I said, for that, you need to tell them now.
That's right.
So that they don't think that this is the only path.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
Demarius ends up doing an internship in Peru, and when he had to go to Peru, this is his sophomore year at Michigan. He said, Mr. Young, I was supposed to fly from Detroit to Chicago, and then from Chicago to Miami, and then from Miami down to Peru. But the flight from Detroit to Chicago got canceled. I said, well, did you go? He said, Mr. Young, I drove to Chicago, caught the flight from Chicago to Dallas,
Good for him.
and then went from Dallas
Good for
to Miami, and then Miami down into Peru.
That's right.
I said, you learn what it means to be consistent.
That's right.
To keep going.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
right.
And you know what is
Persevere.
interesting? You said that. That's powerful about.
That's good. That's
about
good.
when we talk about, people work, with their bodies,
Right.
And my daughter,
Right.
and I really work with her on the same. I need to exercise your brain in terms of being okay with studying for an hour, 2 hours.
There it is.
Because we're quick, we could do other things, but
yeah.
we want to
Oh,
study.
yeah.
Oh, am I done yet, Daddy? And it's funny you said like at where I work now, and maybe just being who I am and from an education perspective. So people that's on my team that I manage, they'll ask me a question.
Yeah.
Or I'll say, okay. And they always say, oh, here you go. I say, okay, let's back up. And we'll walk through it because I want them to be able, if I'm not there for a week,
Right.
you have the skill set to be able to make decisions
Right.
and be able to make good clinical decisions in our environment, as opposed to, hey, me giving you the answer. So every time someone asks me a question, I say, okay, let's walk through this. I said, have you thought about this? And what about this? To
Right.
begin to practice thinking through these
Critical
things,
thinking.
critical
Right,
thinking
right.
skills. And a lot of people come out of college.
That's true.
They
All
don't.
right.
They don't.
Yeah.
But you know, I want to
You
say
want a
this, and
thinker.
then we'll end it. I
Yeah.
understand, but you know, one of the things that I think that our kids need to learn is how can we make a difference in this world, and how can we
Yeah.
change the
That's right.
narrative in this world. And I was looking at something, I forget what it was, but it was different. African Americans that was in slavery and how they made a difference in society, but they didn't get the credit because
yeah.
they wasn't, they were slaves.
Right.
And I was saying, I wish that it would be something where something would get changed where those individuals who actually created that invention will get the credit and not the slave, the
Well, that's-
master.
and-
But
go ahead,
before
go
I
ahead,
say
go
that, I wish it was so, because I think that we need to understand in our society of how many African Americans contribute to America and the things that they created,
right.
or even sit back and came up and they didn't get the credit for. And my thing is that, listen, we have a lot of bright minds out there. There's a lot of young
Absolutely.
kids out there with bright minds who they just don't understand that they can make a difference in the society unless they're encouraged. And
Yes,
maybe
and
it's
that's
not.
what-
Maybe it won't be the teacher. Maybe it will. But I'm talking to someone who I know that has the responsibility, and that's our parents.
That's right.
You have
Our
the
Generation Xers.
responsibility to change the narrative in your home, to talk to your children. Look and see what it is they want to do. Look at the creativity that they already have.
That's right.
Sometimes it's already embedded in them. I have backed off of my son. He being 14, me being a father, hey, don't you wrestle? Play football. He didn't want to do none of that. He didn't want to play football, wrestle. That wasn't his mindset because he didn't grow up around that environment. Because I played sports in school, but he's seen what we did, in digital, in coding and whatever. And that was his mindset. But I wanted him to play football. I wanted to play basketball. Man, come on, man. Because I want to be, go. I want to be. And that wasn't him. It's not him. He want to use this. He actually want to use his brain. You get what I mean? And, and that's the thing. So we don't push it. If your son, if your child, don't always think the best thing is sports, because I'm trying to tell you that you're gonna get your child hurt. You know what I mean? If that's something that they don't want to do, don't push them.
That's right. That's right.
See what it is your child wants to do, and encourage them in the area. Don't you want to be a contributor to the society?
Yes.
Science just could be a way.
That's right.
Give us
All
your
right.
information. How do we
Yeah.
how do they reach out to you?
The best way to reach out to us is that you can email us at ecotechlab@gmail.com, ECOTEK lab, LAB, @gmail.com. That would probably be the best way. You can also Google anything about our lab. Just type in Ecotech Lab science. There's articles and news stories about our lab. We've been covered by quite a few folks. The one organization that really gave us a kudos was Bayer AG. So Bayer owns a magazine called Leaps Magazine, and you can just Google YMCA for Scientists. That's how they labeled our lab. We run the YMCA for Scientists, which spoke volumes about the fact that we've created a place where young people feel comfortable doing
Right.
science.
That's big too.
That's great.
That's great.
And so I think that would be the one of the best ways. I know you
right.
guys are super social media. Y'all super social media. I'm probably not. I'm old school. Like I like to touch you. So email or if you text me, you might get me. But a Facebook post, you're probably not gonna see it. Twitter, I'm not gonna get out of
You're
that
not
either.
alone. I'll
No,
just say that.
I
There's
like
other
to.
people
I'm old
that's like
school.
that.
I'm old school. I like to see you, touch
That's right.
you, and so when
Thank you, sir.
That's right.
that's critical.
Oh,
So
my
when families want to come to the lab, they should come in. They should schedule time.
That's right.
Talk to your families about what it would take to establish a laboratory in your community.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I do want to build more laboratories for families in communities where we don't have a presence. But, you know, what you're doing at that point in time is you're connecting the dots. You're connecting families again. And I
That's
think
great.
the internet in certain cases has
Yeah,
disconnected
it has.
our ownership to the
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
And so you know, that's kind of what I would do.
Okay, great.
Just Google us.
Awesome.
All right.
Guys,
All right, thank you.
We guys, listen, like and share. I definitely want you to share this page.
Yes.
I definitely want you to like
We
it.
thank our
Involve-
guests
My son is
for
in the
coming.
program.
That's
and
right.
It's. I mean, you know, I know this ain't church, so I ain't gonna give a testimony.
Mm.
But
All right.
I just really love, like, if I could just say this real quick.
You
know,
can.
if you are a parent and let's say you weren't the best in school, you know, you weren't the AB student. So you have a child that you know is bright and you're like, okay, so how does a C parent cultivate a A+ student? And I'm not saying that that's exactly my case, but I'm saying there might be people out there like
yeah.
that. And so even with that, it becomes intimidating because
Yes, yeah.
you may not know.
That's right.
Where does my child
That's right.
need to be?
That's right.
You
True.
know, and
Yeah.
Dr. Young's program, I'm just saying, if you know your child is bright, he has the connections, he has the environment.
That's right.
That takes those kids to just a level that I'm not thinking about satellites and cybersecurity and I mean, you know, on the
Paul Jr.
on the
is. He's on
space
that.
level.
That's
you
Is
what
know?
Paul
he's doing.
stressed?
That,
Is he stressed?
Is he stressed out in any way?
No.
Oh.
he enjoys it. But you know, one of the
Okay.
things, you bring up a
No.
very good point, though, Miss Tracy. One of the things that I would say is this: I've run into families where the child is ready and the parent is not.
Yeah.
And that parent is really in the way.
That's right.
So I always tell those
Get out the way,
parents,
parents.
you got to get out
Get
the
out
way.
the way.
You know, I got one in
Step
there.
back.
All right.
You know,
Get out the way.
Yeah,
Get out
yeah.
the
You
way.
almost
All
have to
right.
say that sometimes.
Yeah,
That's true.
so-
And that opens up the door. So when
That's right.
parents come in, they say, well, you know, Mr. Young, what's the interview going to be? I said, well, you know, we're going to interview the student, but I need you to stand to the side and
That's
allow
right.
yourself to see what you have.
That's right. 'Cause
But
I
you
had to
don't
get out the
know.
way. I had to get out the way of my son. I had to
Right.
get out the way.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
it
have-
happens.
Be creative. Use your creative
There you go.
mindset
There
instead
you
of
go.
me saying, "Yeah, I want to see you throw that football so I can be proud." Whatever. But guys,
All right,
listen,
yes.
guys,
So-
listen. Definitely, please
Thank you for
like
having
this,
me.
share
Yeah,
this.
thank you
page.
for coming.
Yeah, guy, and listen,
Yes.
he's in the city. He's down at Tech Town.
I am.
If-
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
right.
have
everybody-
another lab in Corktown for super lightweight metals research.
Okay.
Yeah.
And guys, reach out to to
Yes.
the program. I know. And guys, listen, reach out to us. Go to our email. You can go to our email. We can get you in contact with him, his program.
Yes.
Email us, contact us. But listen, get your child. Listen, I mean,
Yes.
come on now. This is big to me. I don't even know. I'm excited because I love things that talks about creating. You know what I mean? Anything that can create and make something, do something different.
Yeah.
And it comes from our community because listen, it's not like it's new. It's just like now we could be more accepted and nobody can steal what was already ours like it was in those days. You get you know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying? Slavery.
All right.
So right now you have no excuse. And
That's
why
right.
your child can't grow in this society in terms of science. So listen, shout
All right,
out.
thank you, guys.
Love you guys. Stay tuned because we're going to come up with our relationship hour, and we